Well, thank you very much for your attendance today. As I was telling you, my name is Ana Cortázar. I am the founder of Lane. And well, first of all, I would like you to think about and imagine a Southern Hemisphere connected and a Southern Hemisphere knowledgeable about the ideas, the culture, business opportunities. The idea of Lane is connecting people and professionals in the Southern Hemisphere. Today, as you know, you have registered for a masterclass that will focus in telling you some of the overview and ideas of Latin America and ASEAN. But firstly, I would like to tell you more about Lane. So first of all, well, my name is Ana Cortázar, as I already told you. My day job is being the director of international relations of the National Business Association of Colombia. But my passion is connecting people and connecting the international arena. And that's why I have come with this idea of Lane, the international network, because how come the southern countries don't know anything about each other? And we have to change this as professional working in the international scenario. So firstly, I would like to tell you and share with you that in average, 54% of the population of Latin America, Africa, Middle East, and Asia are below 35 years old. This means that we are the markets of the future. But how come, being the markets of the future, we are not connected? Business in our regions is fragmented. Knowledge in our regions is fragmented and out of reach. And it is very hard to get to know trusted experts and trusted advisors in the regions of the South. That is why Lane comes with this proposal. We want to build a learning network connected and getting the opportunity to people to get trained in business fields with experts in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Here, we would like people to get trained by experts and to connect with the experts and with each other. So, firstly, we will be hosting master classes live. And this is a great opportunity because in the live sessions, you will get to talk directly to the experts that are transforming the knowledge of these regions. Secondly, well, I would like to show you here some of the experts that we have in our network. And the idea is for you to get access to the trusted experts that are leading business and leading business knowledge in these countries. And secondly, the idea is to build a community. We have started building a community in LinkedIn. We already have 8 groups, one focused in China, Japan, ASEAN, India, Middle East, Turkey, and Central Asia, Korea, and Africa. In the overall, we already have about 1,000 members. But the idea today is as well to launch our Telegram group. Later on, I will be sharing in the chat the Telegram group address so that you can join as well. And the idea of these groups is start engaging and connecting business and experts. Well, that's all. I would just thank you to all of you to be part of this meeting. And I would like to give the word and to present and introduce Mr. Sebastián Stercer. Sebastián is the expert that today is going to give out the masterclass. Sebastián is from Argentina. He's the director of the International Observatory of Luján University of Argentina, but as well, Sebastián has been advisor for several companies of Argentina getting into the Indonesian market. So Sebastián, thank you very much for being here, for being the expert that today is going to bring more knowledge about these regions, Latin America and ASEAN. You have the word and you can start sharing your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, dear Anna. Thank you for organizing this wonderful event, this wonderful opportunity to share moment, time, and knowledge with all the people. Also, my gratitude, my thanks to Gerardo Hermosillo, as well as Mariana Medina Gallardo, because they are also supporting you, supporting me to carry on this virtual activity. And I am very happy. I am very happy to organize this event with you as part of the LANE, this wonderful community, and specifically in my case, helping to connect people from ASEAN region as well as the Latin American region. As a person who is actually in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia, more generally speaking, I am very happy because after many times visiting the region, Southeast Asia, I am from Argentina, I could get the opportunity to talk directly with the main actors in the business area, no? Companies, businessmen, businesswomen, as well as academicians, of course, diplomats, people from the government. So I could get a clear panorama, even in this complex scenario right now, the pandemic. But I want to go directly and share my presentation with you right now. The idea of this topic, I will speak during 40 minutes, is to give you an overview about what is happening regarding economic and business perspectives, both in the ASEAN region as well as the Latin America region. So I want to start talking directly to share with you what is the important thing about these both regions in Southeast Asia and in Latin America. If we talk about the population, this is quite interesting for us in order to get the ideas for comparison about each other, because ASEAN has more than 650 million people. In case of Latin America, we are talking approximately more than 630 million people. In ASEAN, we have 10 countries, and in Latin America region, broadly speaking, we have 33 countries, more than 30 countries. So, and subdivided, of course, in Central America and South America specifically. When we talk about the population in both regions, we can see here in this slide, very shortly, that in the case of the ASEAN region, more than 40%, to be exactly with you, 41% of the population comprised by Indonesia. Then we have countries like Philippines and Vietnam. Philippines and Vietnam, more than 100 million people, or almost 100 million people. In the case of Indonesia, is more than 270 million people for this year approximately. But then we have another biggest countries talking about population in Southeast Asia, like Thailand, more than 70 million people, and also in the case of Myanmar, more than 50 million people. If we go to the other side, if we go to the Latin America, we have like Brazil, like the most populous country in Latin America, more than 210 million people. Then we have Mexico with more than 130 million people. And then Colombia with more than 50 million people, and Argentina more than 45 million people. And then we have like a compounded, but several smallest countries, specifically in the case of the Latin America region, more importantly located in the Caribbean, no? Like the smallest islands. This is about the GDP, the GDP in both regions. This is updated information from the World Bank. We have like the total Latin America region, the more than 30 countries. They are compounded more than $5 trillion. In the case of ASEAN, it's more than $3 million. If we again separate and talk specifically, for example, in the case of the ASEAN, we have the importance of Indonesia as the biggest economy in Southeast Asia, more than 35% of the total GDP in ASEAN. is based on the Indonesian economy. In the case of Latin America, we have like a similarity, even in the percentage is more or less the same, because Brazil, the amount is 36% of the total GDP in Latin America, then followed by Mexico, then Argentina and Colombia. So this is quite interesting to analyze, to compare, for example, how is the situation or how was the development or the biggest economies, for example, in both regions in ASEAN and Latin America. Talking about the GDP per capita, the first thing that we need to say is that Singapore is far beyond the most important country with the highest GDP per capita, because it's almost $60,000 GDP per capita, and then followed by one Latin American country, specifically the Bahamas. This kind of countries in Latin America, maybe you can find this anomaly or not, but there are smallest countries located in the Caribbean, mainly. Countries that are based or working specifically with the tourism, with the services sector, even with finance as well. And we are not finding, for example, in the case of the GDP per capita, in Latin America, for example, an important amount in the case of Brazil, for example, Mexico, and Argentina. Countries like, for example, Chile and Uruguay, they have a bigger GDP per capita in Latin America. In the case of ASEAN, apart from Singapore, as I told you before, then we have Brunei as an important country regarding the GDP per capita. It's the smallest country, it's one of the smallest countries, geographically speaking, in ASEAN region. And then we have similarities with Argentina, for example, regarding the GDP per capita, the case of Malaysia, the case of Thailand as well. These are countries higher middle income regarding or following the measures from the World Bank. This is maybe a funny thing, interesting. And there are some videos, in the social media, you can find this kind of comparison between the historical development or behavior, economic behavior, better say, in specific countries or specific regions or countries in the same region. I could find, and there are many videos, by the way, regarding this comparison between Southeast Asia and South America. I could not find so far Southeast Asia against or versus Latin America. But we can find this kind of similarity in the case of South America and Latin America, so we can try to imagine how could be the situation, the behavior, if we find Southeast Asia and Latin America. Interesting thing, if we start from the 1960s, for example, and mixing together economies both in ASEAN and South America. Even remember, ASEAN, it was established in 1967. So before ASEAN, we are just here for statistics purposes. We are just also comparing the behavior of the economies in the ASEAN region or Southeast Asia region, better say. We could find that Brazil as the most important economy starting from 1960 so far until now. Brazil, if we mix together all economies in Southeast Asia and South America, Brazil is still the biggest economy altogether. Okay. Interesting thing is also in that moment, historically, Venezuela, one of the most important economies in both regions, calculating both regions, and then we have some another Latin American economies, and of course we can find, for example, Philippines or Thailand. From the 1970, 1980, 1990, we can find the importance of countries like, economically speaking, of course, of Argentina, for example, Indonesia, and Thailand. Specifically, Brazil, Argentina, Indonesia, during the 1970s to 1990s, they were the three most important economies in both regions together. Remember also that in that period, or in those periods, we were facing several crises, political and economic crisis, specifically, for example, in Latin America, more importantly also in South America. And in the 1990s, for example, we had the problem of the Asian financial crisis, 1997, 1998. Just continue here from the 2000s and the 2019. Brazil, again, remember, as the most important economy so far. And then we find how Indonesia, for example, jumped from the third place to the second place as the most important economy, and Argentina, for example, because most importantly, this a big severe economic crisis in 2001, the GDP was falling abruptly. In the case also of Venezuela, because of the series of economic and political crises again in this century. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the GDP, the real GDP, the expectations for the GDP economies in both regions for this year. We all know already how important was the situation, the impact of the COVID-19 in economies in both regions. So I am not going to refer about how economies in Latin America, they were falling in 2020. And I want to focus indeed in the 2021, the expectations, I mean, for this year. In ASEAN, as well as the Latin America and the Caribbean, we are expecting a growth in the GDP approximately similar, almost 5% in the case of ASEAN, and in the case of Latin America is 4.6. There are some economies, for example, in the case of ASEAN, that in this year, they are going to recover all the impact that they were facing in the last year. There are another economies, for example, the Philippines, that they are going to take more than 1 year to recover or to come back, I mean, to the pre-pandemic level. Then you can find here in red color the situation in one country specifically in the ASEAN, which is Myanmar. Maybe you know the situation in Myanmar, this coup d'etat about the government, the democratic government of Aung San Suu Kyi. And we have actually now the dictatorship, and there is no sign that they are going to receive or they are going to resign, taking the power. And because of this abrupt change, I mean, in the government, the economy in Myanmar is going to be severely damaged. There are already some companies that they were stopping the investment or running operation, specifically the foreign direct investment in sectors like the infrastructure or manufacturing. And this is very important for a situation in a country like Myanmar, because it was many decades, long time under dictatorship already. So from 2011 until, well, starting this year, they were having some kind of reforms, including a democratic process, electing president, democratic president, I mean, and then they came back, I mean, to this kind of dictatorship. In the case of Latin America, also, we have some economies that maybe they are going to come back to the pre-pandemic levels. But then there are economies like, for example, my country, Argentina, they will take a long time to come back to the pre-pandemic level, considering the situation that before the pandemic, they were already in recession or economic crisis, specifically from April 2018. In red color also, you will find the situation of Venezuela because of these, problems that they have. I mentioned something about this before. So the situation in Venezuela, more or less, we can try to compare with Myanmar in some perspectives, okay, not at all. But important for Venezuela is, from the economic view, is severely damaged. So this is important for the people in Venezuela, for countries in Latin America interested to do business, investment, or being connected with people in Venezuela. Regarding the foreign trade in both regions and taking into consideration the specific countries located there, we can find, for example, in ASEAN, the statistics are for 2020, so are quite updated. There are some countries that they are very open for foreign trade, for investment. Some countries, they are just acting like a logistic hub. The case of Singapore specifically. Then we have countries with important manufacturing centers, the case of Vietnam, the case of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. In the case of Latin America, we find the really importance of Mexico when we talk about the foreign trade. But the particular situation with Mexico is a very big important dependence for the foreign trade, I mean, with the United States, mainly with Canada, of course, because they are working together in this renewed trade agreement. Before it was named NAFTA. Right now in English is UNSCA, or in Spanish is TEMEC, is the United States, Canada, and Mexico agreement. So because of this, historically from the 1990s, Mexico was really dependent on this kind of bilateral trade with the United States mainly, but also Canada. And also Mexico playing an important role when doing the foreign trade regionally, interregional, not only with another parts like in Europe, like in Asia, but also intra-regional, specifically with Central America. Then apart from Mexico, we have also the important role in Latin America regarding the foreign trade of Brazil. Then Chile. Chile is always an interesting case to analyze because of this active and aggressive trade policy regarding the trade agreements. Even Chile has a lot of trade agreements with Southeast Asian countries. I think except with the Philippines and the smallest economies in ASEAN. But apart from these countries, already with countries like Indonesia, like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. So it's important the connection, specifically in this topic of Chile with these ASEAN countries that I mentioned before. Talking about the importance of some countries and some sub-regions for ASEAN and for Latin America, intentionally, I was not mentioning here the importance of China, for example, or Japan or South Korea, specifically in the case of the ASEAN, because we know already how important, how well integrated they are from a business perspective because of this a lot of trade agreements, bilaterally, but also when ASEAN was signing the trade agreement with the dialogue partners. And now even we need to talk about the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So I just want to focus here in this slide specifically with another sub-regions. And of course, I want to put my lens, my perspective about how we are placed in Latin America and the Caribbean for ASEAN, how important we are so far for the doing business between Latin America and ASEAN. We can find here that if we bring together some of these subregions, we find that it's very important the business with United States, Mexico, and Canada, more importantly with the United States. Then we find the European Union. Then we have, for example, the another subregions like the Middle East, mainly because of the oil and the gas. Then we have the South Asia region, importantly the role India plays. And then we have Oceania, because geographically they are very, very close. And even they have, apart from this perspective, they have trade agreements. So this is a good prospect for ASEAN business with Oceania. After that, after those sub-regions, then it's a time of Latin America with the 7%. And then after Latin America, Africa. So comparatively and relatively speaking, we are still far behind, no? Far behind these another sub-regions. So if we need to be optimistic about this, we need to say that there are a lot of things to do. There are still a lot of potential. It's just a matter to be more specific when we want to approach the ASEAN region. What kind of sectors we want to put attention, and of course we need the help, we need the assistance, and even the proactiveness of the governments in Latin America, working together like a regional bloc, or Latin America as a whole in specific forums, for example, the FIALAC, or bilateral. Some countries they are approaching ASEAN or even the ASEAN countries, because it's important also to mention that ASEAN countries they can do bilateral trade agreements apart from the trade agreements that they can do working together as ASEAN members. This maybe is a little different in some regional blocs in Latin America. I specifically mentioned the Mercosur. Even we have some updated news today and from yesterday with Mercosur and Uruguay, for example. Brazil, I'm going to talk about this a little later. Continue with ASEAN, and if we try to separate these specific regional blocks located in Latin America, we find the importance, first of all, of the Mercosur, specifically when Mercosur exporting the commodities, and from Mercosur importing mainly the manufacturing products. Then we have Pacific Alliance, 42%, the importance again of some commodities, agricultural products from the Pacific Alliance, and again, manufacturing products mainly, but not only, I mean, coming to the Pacific Alliance region. I'm going to talk later a little about the Pacific Alliance, the countries, the main characteristics. And then we have the little portion that they have in this sharing situation of the CARICOM in Central America and the Caribbean, sorry, and the Central American Common Market. Okay, so this is very not so significant when we compare with another. In the case of Latin America, in the right part of this slide, you can find how important the neighbors that we have in North America, United States, Mexico, and Canada, almost 70% of the total, how important it is for Latin America, from Central America to Argentina, Chile, located in the south. Then we have the importance of the European Union, traditional partners from long time ago already. And then is the time, for example, of the ASEAN. So if we compare the situation of how ASEAN is placed in our side, I mean, from Latin America perspective, vice versa, how Latin America is compared from the ASEAN view, we can try to find these similarities, these differences, not specifically the percentage, but when they are comparing with another partners or with another sub-regions. Next is about the foreign trade. This is specifically in the left part of this slide, when Latin American countries are exporting to the ASEAN region, and in the right side, when ASEAN is exporting to Latin America. I just put here for your information. Maybe some of you know already what are the most important products, and also the HS code, the harmonized system, and the percentage of the total that, for example, in the case of ASEAN, the number one, residues and waste from the food industry, how important it is when exporting to the ASEAN. And in the case of the ASEAN exporting to Latin America, the importance of some electronic products, manufacturing, machinery, spare parts, mainly for factories, for example, that are exporting to Latin America, mainly from countries like Vietnam, like Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, for example. In the case of the, sorry, Anna, I think you need to make another questions.
No, it's okay. The poll is already done. So thank you very much, Sebastian. We can keep on going directly.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. Continuing with the free trade agreements that ASEAN specifically has, remember the dialogue partners, as I mentioned before. You can find about this information in the website of ASEAN. It's very clear, very complete. You can find even in the website of ASEAN, apart from the members, the profiles, the objectives of ASEAN, the pillars that sustain this growth of ASEAN from 1967 so far. What are the long-term visions? For example, the vision ASEAN Economic Community for 2025, because they are working like a roadmap every 5 years or 6 years, for example, they are making like a roadmap with different activities, different projects that they need to follow and complete in every year. This is very important and interesting, and it shows transparency. It shows responsibility, commitment from the ASEAN members. Even we know the differences, the asymmetries, because if we talk the population is not the same. Talking about Indonesia, more than 270 million people, than Singapore or Brunei, for example. And economically, we cannot mention, or we cannot talk again, Indonesia or the GDP per capita in Singapore, like the economy in Laos or Myanmar. So it's important that recognizing these differences, these asymmetries, they keep working, even in the pandemic context, working together, finding ways together to battle or to strive with these specifically problems that they are facing in the region. But regarding the free trade agreements with the dialogue partners, which is not only regarding the economy, but it's also regarding politics, it's also regarding culture, climate change, sustainability, gender. There are many topics, I mean, that they, as ASEAN, they are talking with these important dialogue partners like Australia, like New Zealand, China, India, Japan, Korea, and also Hong Kong. ASEAN with Hong Kong, they have also free trade agreement. So these free trade agreements made with the dialogue partners. Now, if we focus on countries in ASEAN from a bilateral perspective, forget about how ASEAN together they were making the free trade agreements with the dialogue partners. But in this slide, I just put the examples of countries, particular countries. They have already some free trade agreements or preferential trade agreements or comprehensive economic partnership agreements. And I just mentioned here to make a difference, making with green color, I mean, the free trade agreements already in force, already working, operational. And then with the orange color, the free trade agreements that they are already under negotiation. And I not mentioned here, but there are already another initial stages like exploration or just putting interest, okay? But just to give example here, you can read about this later. This presentation can be shared with you, no problem. For example, the case of Indonesia, they have already enforced free trade agreements, or better say, comprehensive economic partnership agreements with countries like Chile. This is interesting for us in Latin America. With Australia, this is interesting with us because Australia, we can see it as a competitor for some different products. And then, for example, already signed but not yet ratified comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Korea. And then also they are under negotiation. It will take some time with the EFTA, European Union, for example. You can find also important free trade agreements in the case of Malaysia, and most importantly, in the case of Singapore. As I mentioned before, Chile is one of the most proactive countries in Latin America when making trade agreements with ASEAN, because already with Indonesia, already with Malaysia, already with Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. But also here, if I am not wrong, we can find in the case of Singapore, they have already trade agreement with Costa Rica, country located in Central America, as well as Panama, also in Central America, and Peru in South America. Okay, so this is interesting to realize. This is the importance that we know already the RCEP is going to take for all the participants, but not only. We need to understand that this kind of big trade agreement, the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, is going to shape the trade scenario, the trade patterns in Southeast Asia and countries in Oceania and East Asia. But as a consequence, there are going to be also indirect consequences for even countries in Latin America. The point is how we can find this consequence for us. I mean, and how we can take it as potential opportunities for export, import, investment, or etc. Okay. So just for very short information, the 15 countries that already signed it, but not all ratified the agreement, are the 10 members of ASEAN: China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. When we talk about countries not yet ratified, for example, we can mention Malaysia, Brunei in ASEAN, and in the case of South America or Latin America, Chile and Peru. But you can see the statistics, how important is going to be the RCEP if we talk about the GDP, global GDP, the global trade, and the global population. Is almost 30% of these three different indicators. And this is another one, the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. Here, you know already, it's not belonging the United States, but we have some countries in America continent, because we need to mention Canada, and some countries in Asia and Oceania. And we have some countries, because of this, in Latin America, like Mexico, Peru, and Chile. Sorry, I make a mistake. I mentioned before the countries Chile, Peru is here in the CPTPP. I think I mentioned before in the RCEP, so I'm really sorry for my mistake. It's here in the CPTPP, where Chile and Peru not yet ratified the agreement. Mexico, yes, already ratified the agreement. And in the case of the CPTPP, countries like Malaysia and Brunei pending to ratify. In the case of the RCEP, now I need to clarify this, is not yet operational. There are already some countries that already ratified, but some of them, for example, in the case of Indonesia, not yet. So it's going to take some time, maybe but maybe perhaps for 2022, we are going to have a better prospect for RCEP already into force. This is like a kind of comparison. If we come back and remember the bilateral or particular countries in the ASEAN region, when they have the free trade agreement, this is the case for the Latin American countries. And you can see how important, how aggressive, how active was Chile and continue being with this policy or strategy when we talk about the free trade agreements. Remember already, with the most important, almost all biggest economies and trade partners in ASEAN, Chile already has free trade agreements. And then we have another Latin American countries already also signing several free trade agreements, the case of Peru, the case of Colombia, Mexico, and of course, the case of Panama. Panama, remember, for example, with Singapore, they are very important. We can try maybe to make a kind of comparison, Panama and Singapore as logistic hubs in Latin America and ASEAN respectively, maybe more focused in the case of Panama in Central America and working also with Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, for example. These are the regional blocks in Latin America. I was mentioned about this some slides before. I just put here the member countries that compose each regional block in Latin America. We have the Central America Common Market. We have the Caribbean Community, known as CARICOM. We have the Andean Community. We have the Pacific Alliance, and we have the South Common Market, which is the Mercosur. In the case of Mercosur, I just put here the case of Venezuela as a suspended temporarily country for because of some violations in clauses in the Mercosur law, Mercosur regulations, I mean. If we talk specifically the case of Mercosur, it was established in 1991, but then working more operational from 1995, thanks to the protocol of Ouro Preto. You can find here some basic facts like the member states. We have some associated countries, mostly located in South America. We have the trade agreements that Mercosur already signed, already operational. For example, we have preferential trade agreement with India. We have trade agreement with Egypt. We have a preferential trade agreement with Southern Africa Customs Union. So all this is important, but it seems that work must be done when we want to focus on Asia or Asia Pacific, and most importantly, Southeast Asia. From the Mercosur perspective, I mean, acting like a regional bloc. But the interesting thing here is that there are already some kind of agreements under different stages, maybe already negotiation, facing some obstacles even. We have some exploration stages. We have some interest from Mercosur or from the other counterpart about the idea of signing a free trade agreement. Interesting for us in this Latin America ASEAN broad perspective is that countries like Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia is under Mercosur radar. No? Radar is, Mercosur is really interested, but maybe with some priorities or under different speeds about the idea of signing trade agreement. Maybe we are more interested right now with countries like Singapore than with Vietnam or Thailand or Indonesia, sorry. In the case of Korea, for example, it's not ASEAN, but I want to also mention the case of Republic of Korea, that from Mercosur, specifically Argentina, there are some worries, some concerns regarding the idea of signing a free trade agreement. Maybe if we can try to make some adjustment, because this perception we have in our country, my country in Argentina, that it could damage the local industry because the competitiveness of South Korea, specifically the manufacturing. In the case of the Pacific Alliance, these 4 countries located in the Pacific coast of South America and also Central America, even to the North America in the case of Mexico, as well as Mercosur. If we combine together, no? For example, the case of Mercosur together, we always say that Mercosur is like the 5th most important economy in the world. Well, something similar when we put together countries in the Pacific Alliance, we can say that Pacific Alliance is like the 8th most important economy in the world, or the 8th most important exporter, for example. The same we can also mention about ASEAN. ASEAN putting together, we can say ASEAN as the 5th most important economy, or the number 4 even. So this is the same for the Pacific Alliance. The important the Pacific Alliance, maybe for the Southeast Asia, could be that they mentioned in the Pacific Alliance from the very beginning, I mean, 2012, for example, how important is Asia Pacific for the development of Pacific Alliance and countries working together inside the Pacific Alliance. They are already putting a priority to the Asia Pacific. So this is important, how from Southeast Asia, no, we can try to catch these priorities or strategies that Pacific Alliance is already exposing, or declaring publicly about not only trade, business, but also political cooperation, working together regarding sustainability, and of course, more than ever, the idea of the digitization, I mean, the connectivity, digital connectivity, and even another subsectors related to them, like the e-commerce, for example, or smart cities. Smart cities is another topic very interesting for ASEAN and also for Pacific Alliance, that they really could work together and improve working together. So this is very important to find already the potential opportunities for these both regions. In the case of CARICOM in Central America, we have here, I'm not going to mention all, these countries mainly located in the Caribbean islands, combining together almost 25 million people, inhabitants. Interestingly, the GDP per capita is relatively high comparing even with the Mercosur, because the GDP in the Mercosur, for example, is more than $15,000. So even here is a little more, but the GDP is not so high as well as the population, because in Mercosur we have almost 300 million people, something similar even in the case of Pacific Alliance. So maybe from the perspective of comparing the GDP, comparing the population, we can say that is most important being connected maybe for export and import, Mercosur and the Pacific Alliance. And because of the idea of being well connected, not only interregional but also intra-regional, we need to acknowledge how well integrated. Of course, there are something that must be being developed or improving, but already there were a clear advance, a clear, really good evolution in the ASEAN region, specifically the infrastructure, the transport, not only the sea corridors, but also the land corridors, no? Specifically in the great sub-region, the Mekong, no? Countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, parts of Myanmar, the importance of the land connectivity because maybe, for example, the case of Laos, Laos has not maritime ports. I mean, comparing with Vietnam, with Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. So it's important for Laos in this case, has a real upgraded infrastructure, specifically with neighbors like Thailand and Vietnam. So for this is really important how ASEAN as a bloc, and also bilateral, in a bilateral way, no? Laos with Thailand, for example. But also we need to mention some of these dialogue partners that maybe are interested in this region, are already investing, like Japan, like Korea, like China, or maybe not yet dialogue partners, but also interested and investing, some European countries, the United States as well. This is interesting how we can think from Latin America about the connectivity, specifically the infrastructure, specifically the transport connection, I mean, in ASEAN, the sea corridors, and of course, land corridors and the air connectivity for sure. I just put here the 5 biggest ports in Southeast Asia. We have more in the region, in this region. The important thing is that these important ports that I mentioned here, the case of Singapore, 2 ports in Malaysia, 1 port in Jakarta here in Indonesia, and also 1 port in Thailand, they are very well ranked in the top, for example, the top 50 world container ports, measuring the containers that every year they are handling. And we can see how competitive or how important is the case of Singapore. So this is interesting because even ports, like ports in the Singapore and some ports in Southeast Asia, apart from this port in Singapore, they are already investing and upgrading their facilities, try to be even more eco-friendly, so thinking about the sustainability, being more digital. So this is something that we can learn maybe perhaps from Latin America, or maybe we can try to catch opportunities and work in this specific sector that ASEAN countries are developing. Just for comparison, I put here some ports in Latin America in order to clarify how important they are comparing with each other. You can see here in red color, circle, no? With red color, the most important ports in Latin America, from Mexico, Manzanillo, to some ports in Central America, specifically located in Panama. And then we have another important port, if we continue following the red color, in Brazil, Santos port in Brazil. But of course, I don't want to forget the other ports. No? Okay, there are another important ports in South America. Also, Veracruz in Mexico is another port I was not mentioning before, but it's also important. Ports in the Pacific. This is important for ASEAN, for example, located in Ecuador, located in Colombia and Peru and Chile. In the case of Argentina, we have the port of Buenos Aires. In the case of Uruguay, we have the port of Montevideo. This is one of the last things I want to talk generally, is about the trends, the opportunities that we can try to catch in both regions, not only in Southeast Asia, from the Latin America perspective, but also in Latin America from the ASEAN perspective or Southeast Asian perspective. And some things that, because of the pandemic, has been accelerated, specific topics or trends that could be interesting for us to find ways to do business, to invest, to make operations, to share know-how, etc. For ASEAN, for Latin American region, and remember the population, because they have approximately each region 650 million people approximately. And because of this, it's very important, more than ever, to feed these people, no? To bring them food. So, and even more, if we think about what's happening with the pandemic, no, and this awareness regarding the food security, how the packaging is handled, of course, also considering the sustainability, the climate change, the environment. There are many things that can be also traced and put together into the food sector, the food industry, or the food market. When we want to export, for example, products from Latin America to the ASEAN. So it's important that we can try to understand what are the requirements, what are the necessities, what they are looking for, what are the kind of food that they are eating every day, no? The preference of the consumers when they are buying, if online, not online, which places they are going, hypermarkets, supermarkets. Of course, because of the pandemic, I'm going to talk about this later, but how important has been the e-commerce and also the online platforms for deliveries in both regions, not only in ASEAN. I am here in Indonesia already for almost 2 years, and specifically from the last year with the pandemic, I really could witness, I was a witness how important has been the e-commerce, and more importantly, how important was the platforms, the online platforms for deliveries, such as Gojek, such as Grab, and even we have Shopee Food, for example. So this is interesting to analyze, to compare, to do research, and also to bring to our region in Latin America about the lessons that we can learn, maybe what things we can bring for our region, like experiences. Maybe we can attract some of these players in Southeast Asia to work in Latin America, or from Latin America, we can try to jump to the ASEAN region and invest or doing business in any way regarding the food market, regarding the e-commerce and the different platforms related to the food market. Another important thing I don't want to forget to mention to you is how important in both regions are the millennials, the young population, and how these young populations are putting a lot of attention when they are buying specifically the food products, and how every day, so frequent, they are using the social media to look for options, to buy products even. So this is another strategy that we need to follow up when we want to put attention from our side, from a business perspective, about what is happening in the ASEAN region and Latin American region. They are playing a very important role, the millennials, the young population. So I think we can find really opportunities in these both regions for the food market. This is another business opportunity in a very specific sector, still connected with connectivity, by the way, connected with the technology and the importance of the food security. So this is like a continuum of the last topics I was mentioning before. We know how important the technology put on the agricultural sector can benefit not only the producers, not only the exporters, not only the importers, not only the final consumers, but as a whole, the competitiveness even of a country, a sub-region. If we look about this more broadly, geographically, we can find that it could be very beneficial, it could be very effective for all. So it's important that we can try to understand what is happening in ASEAN, what is happening in Latin America, because we can find really opportunities for both regions in this specific sector. I just mentioned here, you can Google them, you can find in the internet the particular successful stories of these companies located in Southeast Asia. I just put here companies, located in Indonesia, but also you can find here some companies in another countries in another region, part of the Southeast Asia region, but mainland, in the mainland, not in the archipelago like Indonesia. And this is the most successful. These are the most successful startups that they will help not only the community, not only the business environment, but also the development of a specific country for the food ecosystem, also the economic behavior of a country. And this is something that from Latin America, because we know that we have already successful stories from our region, also we can compare with them, also we can try to invest in this another region. Or maybe we can try to catch these companies or another companies in Southeast Asia and bring them to our region, to Latin America. Mostly regarding these startups following the traceability of the products when they are already harvested to the last stage, no? the commercialization, the marketing, how they are transported, how animals, for example, they were fed with raw materials, a lot of things that if I continue talking, I will never finish, because it's a very exciting topic to put attention here in Southeast Asia. I just mentioned here some companies in Thailand, already very successful for different products, but with the same idea of bringing to the people, not only the Thai people, I mean Thailand, but also when they are these products exported to neighboring countries, to another countries, a lot of technology is put in this effort to bring cost-effective solutions, from the imagery, the drones, the harvesting system, try to predict the climate, the irrigation system. There are a lot of examples, very successful ones that it can be very, very attractive to follow and to compare with our region. The case of Latin America, well, you have a lot of time to read about all these companies I put here. But the important thing also in Latin America, because similar with Southeast Asia, we have a lot of arable land, no? Land, I mean, already available to be produced and to put technology in this production, depending the product or no matter the product. But in a specific thing in Latin America that I can also refer to this in Southeast Asia, there are some challenges mainly related to the finance, no? How the startups, the people interested to invest in this entrepreneurship, I mean, how they can get the fund, the money to develop the idea, no? From the idea to the real project or to the real product or service. Well, apart from the human capital, which is very important, but also the money. So some countries in Latin America, there are exceptions, of course, but they have this kind of obstacle. So maybe in Southeast Asia, because we have very good examples of capital venture, they are working, no, with startups in the agri-tech and other digital startups that maybe they can be interested to well, go to Latin America. There are already some, but few examples of capital venture firms in Southeast Asia, mainly in Singapore, working in Brazil, Mexico, and Costa Rica, if I am not wrong. So this is something that we can try to analyze, to compare how we can work together, because there is a lot of potential and there is a lot of work pending to be done regarding the food security, regarding the sustainability, and other topics also that must be related to the agri-tech. This is a specific scenario for ASEAN and Mexico regarding the e-commerce mainly, and the retail also is put into here. There is a predominance of the online when the pandemic was hitting very hard in specific countries in both regions. Right now, unfortunately, in Indonesia, we are severely affected because of the pandemic. So it's really important how the online platform, not only the e-commerce, the important is how they can bring solutions for the people because of the restrictions or the worries that we have if we want to go outside to buy a specific product. So it's important how they can bring to us the different solutions and the different promotions, of course, because we need to consider that economically we were in general very affected with the incomes, the salary income. So this is important how they can bring together a lot of alternatives, ideas, promotions, helping to the people in this difficult scenario. You can find here in the right part of this slide the best successful examples of startups regarding e-commerce and retail located in Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, for example. I was not mentioning here, but in Latin America we can find the importance of Mercado Libre, for example, a startup located in Argentina. There are another ones. I was remembering also, if we compare with Gojek, if we compare with Grab in Southeast Asia, we have Rappi in Latin America from Colombia. Is very successful, very interesting. It's very interesting to actually to do research about this, to compare behaviors of one with other, no? And maybe how they can work together, perhaps potentially in the different region. Maybe one day we can see Rappi going to Southeast Asia, or another startup from Latin America going to Southeast Asia, competing with Gojek, Grab, for example. Or for example, from Southeast Asia, coming to countries like Brazil, Mexico, and giving solutions, alternatives, competing with Latin American companies, startups. This is just a continue very short about this, how important is the mobile penetration, specifically the mobile penetration, because in countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and it's very interesting also the thing in Indonesia, how the people, they are constantly, frequently, and so intensively using the mobile phone to see what is happening, no? The current trends, of course, even when they want to buy specific product or service, how they can go in thanks to the mobile phone and do the purchasing. This is really interesting to analyze. I was attending, by the way, a webinar today in the afternoon. Some people in Indonesia, experts in Indonesia, in a marketing way, and they were mentioning this, how attractive is the digital marketing in Indonesia, how the people, they are constantly looking for new and better options for specific products, and more than ever for the healthy products. And they are looking, thanks to the mobile phone, to all the different promotions or platforms that they are selling or showing just for promotional proposals. This is the case of the retail. Some cases in Latin America. It's interesting. In Brazil, we have Shopee. Shopee is a very successful startup from Southeast Asia, and is already working in Brazil, very successful, and even now is interesting with Mexico. We don't know, maybe in this year or next year, but it's really interesting to analyze what is going to do Shopee in another Latin American countries. No? But it's important that some countries, and specifically the countries with the biggest population, how attractive could be for us when we talk about doing business. When we want to invest, when we want to think not only in our respective region, but when we want to go to the other region, whatever the differences we can find, no? the cultural differences, the geographical differences, among other things, that we can find similarities, and maybe these similarities can help us as business decision makers to to not be shy and to go ahead. Okay. Well, this is a very complex sector right now, but it's a matter to think, to continue thinking in the tourism. Maybe right now we can just think about domestic tourism, no, inside specific countries. No, for example, domestic tourism in Indonesia, because right now is very complicated to not say possible to come because of tourism activities to Indonesia. Well, the same we can mention another examples both in Southeast Asia and Latin America. But the thing here to analyze, maybe for a more academic reason or perspective, is how we can compare the situation, the tourism, the policies from the government to the tourism, the strategies for the travel agencies or the most important players in the tourism industry in specific countries in both regions. And again, always again, what we can learn from the other, and maybe how even the restriction we have right now for traveling, but maybe how we can find an opportunity in this crisis. How maybe we can try to jump to the other region, maybe like a joint venture or some kind of cooperation, and keep moving forward. Okay, not waiting after we are all fully vaccinated, because we really don't know. Actually, with these new variants over and over, we are not finishing ever, maybe. So I think it's time, even for tourism, even so complicated for tourism, to think how we can work not only in a domestic way in our region, but getting out from our comfort zone and going to the other. How from Southeast Asia we can think about working in the tourism in Latin America and vice versa. It's a matter of how we can think, to plan, and to act. Okay, of course we are going to face many cons. No, if we try to balance pros and cons, of course we are going to find a lot of obstacles. But I am optimistic, and I can also put a list of pros characteristics that we could try to analyze and work together. Okay. Finishing with this, I just want to say that pandemic is far from over. Okay, I mentioned recently, we don't know when we can travel to the other region, to another country, even neighboring country, for example. Is very complicated, is very restricted. So we know already that this complication is existing and will continue existing. Okay, so we need to find opportunities in the middle of crisis. Okay, you know already this quote. The important thing that I want to put from the Latin America region. Remember, we have many regional blocks in Latin America. How we can approach ASEAN as a bloc, or the ASEAN countries in a bilateral perspective, and how we can advance specifically the trade agreements. Of course, you can tell me also, trade agreements is not so easy, or it's taking long time, or there are many obstacles, or it can damage the local industry, etc., etc., etc. And I can agree with you. But at the same time, there were already many countries that they were developing. Of course, it's taking time, but thanks to the trade agreements. So it's important here how from Latin America we can connect with ASEAN and vice versa. How from ASEAN can approach Latin America, considering that Latin America is a non-traditional market. Okay, so this is interesting how we can push our governments, if they are already in the exploration stages for free trade agreements with ASEAN countries, or they are already under negotiation, or if yet there is no exploration, nothing, but maybe we can try to attract the interest and to tell them how dynamic, for example, is the ASEAN region, how well connected they are with another big partners in Asia Pacific, for example, and how from ASEAN we can work in that perspective, going to these big regional partners more deeply. Because of course, from Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, we are already exporting to China, Japan. But what could happen if from ASEAN, working already there, whatever the way, investing, exporting, importing, but we can bring these opportunities that ASEAN countries, they have the different trade agreements, and even what could happen with the RCEP, what could happen with the CPTPP. It means there are a long way that we need to think and act, okay? So this is the same thing that we need to work from the ASEAN region. Is the same thing. There are already some countries with few trade agreements, but more specifically with Chile. But then we need to find that these countries are representing big economies and also big populations. Remember, we have similar populations, ASEAN and Latin America. So it's time to move, okay? Is to analyze the challenges and to solve these challenges, considering them as problems that we need to find solutions and move beyond, move ahead. Of course, thinking digitally in all ways and by using social networks. Remember the millennials, remember the young population, but even because of the pandemic, the older people, I mean, the oldest ones, they were also trying to buy things online. So this is a good opportunity to understand digitally what is happening and understand how they are using, how frequently they are using the social network. Remember the tourism, and remember this important thing I was not mentioning before, and this is very current problematic one, is the container, is the shipping, because it's really expensive from the times of the pandemic, when China was closing. Remember the lockdown, how it was affecting the supply chain, how was thus as a consequence affecting the shipment routes, and because of that, the containers, the availability of containers, the prices of renting containers or freight, let's say, were jumping very dramatically. And in this year, it continued, and even is more acute, is more important. Right now, a container from China to some parts of the United States or Mexico, for example, or Europe is almost $10,000 or even more. A container from Jakarta to United States is almost $17,000. A year ago, it was maybe $3,000, for example. So it's very complicated at the same time. We need to also understand the complex scenario regarding the containers, regarding the shipment in this moment. And honestly, I am not seeing a clear horizon for containers, the prices of containers getting down, getting cheaper. So it's important how potential sellers and buyers working together. This is a matter of working together and find a solution. This is not a matter of stop doing international trade, no more export, no more import. It's a matter of or getting finance or the ways that they can cooperate to help each other to face this problematic. There are already some successful stories working together, seller with buyer, about the specific case of the container, okay? And the last thing, the last but not least, is that some countries, and this is most specifically related to Latin America, in Latin America, some countries or legislative or presidential, we are going to have some elections if they were not having already. The case of Peru, for example, I am thinking right now, with this complex scenario in Peru, by the way. And I mentioned this because it can affect directly or indirectly, because it depends the policies that the potential government, elected government in the future could put into the economic arena or scenario, and how can affect the business environment, the environment for the investment, specifically from another countries. So please be careful, be aware about what is going to happen in some countries like Peru, like Chile, specifically Chile with presidential elections and also constitution in the next year, Argentina legislative election, Brazil next year, also a presidential election. Also in the next year we have Colombia, and then another countries in Central America. So please be aware about this. Thank you so much, and well, I am open to receive your interesting question. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Sebastian. I think we run a bit over time, but there's no problem. And I see some of the participants are here in the room. So, well, we right now are in the section of Ask Me Anything. The idea is for you to raise your hand, and please, in order, I will give you the word. You just, any of the participants that are here can raise their hand, and I will give the microphone. The idea is to have like a very, like a real experience, to take advantage of that we are in a virtual scenario and that we can all discuss here. So, well, first I see raised up the hand of Rafi. Rafi, I will give you the permit to activate your microphone. You have the word. Rafi, please introduce yourself very, very quickly, your name, what do you do in your daily life, and go straight up to the question.
Okay. Thank you so much, uh, Anna from Colombia. Yeah. My name is Afi. I am from Indonesia, and I'm currently international relations in University of Pelita Harapan in Jakarta. And but right now I'm working in Colombia, so that's why when Anna mentioned like, oh, she's from Bogota, like, wow, okay, what a I would like to tengo que agradecer tengo que agradecer a Sebastián para organizar esta evento. I would like to give a high applause to Anna and Sebas for organizing this event. This is this kind of event that we need. Actually, I am would like to say I would like to say some 2 cents. First of all, um, we all here, 34 participants here. Maybe we all are elite and at some medium elite level because we are some educated people and we are some can be considered as a great people who already know. For me as Indonesia, for example, I am Indonesian as ASEAN people, and I already know many countries in South America and even Latin America, like at least from football. But some of people, especially in Indonesia, they just don't know yet. They just don't know yet. They just don't know how to make differentiate between Colombia and Mexico, or even Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, because there are some confusion between people in different countries here, and the worst thing, uh, and then the worst thing, and this is what I experienced in the embassy. They just put things between Colombia and La Violencia, for example, and the narcos. I mean, I would like to punch CEO of Netflix for bringing that series up, because they just know Colombia as narcos. This this kind of that scaring people, Indonesian people. For example, like if for example there is a random people, then a Colombian said, yeah, I'm from Colombia. Wow, your country is really scary, man. That that actually happened in Indonesia, because my thesis right now, my thesis right now is about Colombian image in Indonesia. My basic assumption is people in Indonesia, especially, they divided at three. They know Colombia as narcos through Netflix. They know Colombia as the football. Yeah, we love football here. And the third one, maybe the business people knows Colombia as a coffee country, which is our competitor. Coffee from Colombia and Indonesia, they maybe they reach a certain high level. So my concern here, maybe for all of us here, is just, yeah, you're right, Sebas. We need to know each other. And right now, we are in the condition of us against those global imperialism called media right now, because that affects both of countries, both of South corporations. So because, yeah, sometimes even worse, Indonesia and Colombia, maybe they just imagine Indonesia as a tsunami country, or even a disastrous country, a country that always disaster occur. For example, tsunami country. So this kind of thing, we need to develop some ways to re-educate or maybe re-enlighten people of each region, especially for the small businesses, small pymes. Para pymes, we need to re-enlighten them, because that is bad, because uh, according to the data from Indonesian embassy in Colombia, the trade balance are still in the low level. I mean, if we compare it to some other European countries, like trade balance between Indonesia and Colombia, for especially, they are still in the low level, even though Indonesia won the surplus. So we need to re-enlighten here. We need to figure a way. We need to figure a way here how to how to change Indonesian people or ASEAN people, how they see South American and Latin America countries, and then vice versa. In Latin America people to ASEAN. We need to put ourselves aside from the global imperialism like Netflix to see the real country looks like here. That's it. That is my 2 cents here. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very
Buenas
much,
noches y
Rafi.
buenos.
And we are totally agree with you. This is why we are launching this initiative. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of bias about our countries. And I frequently ask myself, how come we are not closer to ASEAN? How come we are not closer to these regions if perhaps we have even more things in common? So, Rafi, welcome to the group. Thank you for your comments, are very valuable. And welcome to be more active in this scenario, and a pleasure to meet you. Well, I see another raised hand. Is Moises Leiva. Moises from Chile. You have the word. And
okay. Hello, Anna. Hello, Sebastian. Well, thank you, Anna, for this opportunity, and Sebastian, thank you for your great presentation with a lot of relevant content. Greeting to all the attendees of this excellent masterclass. I am Moses Leiva, manager of the Food Company Association, and I have a question for Sebastian. Do you think the United States will join the CPTPP now with the administration of President Joe Biden? Thank you.
Thank you, Moises, and also I don't want to forget, thank you, Rafi, for your deeply reflection before. Moises, this is my opinion, okay? I don't think that the US will join the CPTPP, even of course there is we can find many differences between the Biden administration, the Trump administration, but slightly differences when we talk about trade policies in general. Because even with Joe Biden, there is a strong lobby in the US that is pushing whatever the political party which is ruling in the White House, and they are actually not so open-minded, not so friendly, not so optimistic. I don't know how to categorize this, but there are many observations from the industrial, specifically the industrial sector in the US, about the idea of joining or rejoining. I think it's better say to joining the CPTPP. I'm not finding this as an opportunity, as a possibility in the near term. Okay, I don't think in this year. I don't think in the next year. I don't know really. I see more possibilities for, and it's going to happen, the UK, for example, with the CPTPP, but not the US.
well, thank you very much, Sebastian and Moises. I see the raised hand by Sinrik. Sinrik, I already gave you the microphone. You can go ahead.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sandrick from Cebu, located in the heart of the Philippines. Cebu was known as the oldest city and the oldest capital of the Philippines, or the first capital of the Philippines. My question is, um, how come that the trade of ASEAN and the Latin only Manila and Davao, while Cebu didn't put into the trade, or not being recognized. It is just because of the political issue in the Philippines, or maybe the corruption of my country due to the trade. And ano, um or maybe there was a racial discrimination between the Tagalog and the Cebuano and the Moro. That's all.
Sebastian, I don't know if you could hear well Sinrik.
No, not so very well. So, or maybe he can repeat, or maybe texting the question, because I don't want
Okay,
to
okay, okay.
answer something that I could not understand. I'm sorry, simply I could not really hear you very well. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Sinrik, if you can please write your question and we can later read it aloud. Okay, so I see, Ezequiel, your hand is raised. I am trying to activate your microphone.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sebastian, Anna. First of all, well, let me congratulate Sebastian on a great presentation, really complete, really thoughtful. I have a few questions. I would like just to stress this is for Sebastian. You talk about a lot about trade and economic cooperation. What do you think it's the opportunities to improve South cooperation through FILAC between Latin America and Southeast Asia? And the other one, I think you as academician, what you believe is the role of the academicians into promoting economic cooperation between South America, or Latin America and Southeast Asia?
Okay, thank
you.
Thank
Ezequiel,
you.
sorry,
Yeah.
could you please repeat your organization and what do you do?
My role, I'm the Secretary of the Department of Asia Pacific of the National University of La Plata, and I'm one of the members of the board of the Latin American Association of Latin American Studies, of Asian Latin American Studies.
Thank you, Ezequiel. Please, Sebastian.
And he's a very good friend indeed. So I am very happy to receive the questions from a friend like Ezequiel in Argentina. Look, well, Ezequiel, I think we have some common opinions, no, regarding when we talk about the trade between South America, our country Argentina, Mercosur, with ASEAN, Southeast Asia. I think I was not talking about this deeply in the presentation, but I think that FIALAC is a good platform that countries working together, you know better than me that they have these kind of working groups, and one of them is specifically related to trade, investments, SMEs, among others, and there are potential that can be carried on from the public sector, no, starting from the high level, the foreign ministers, when they are having these kind of meetings every 2 years, if I am not wrong. But there are potential if they are working together in the FIALAC, and you have experience, by the way, with this, visiting, I think, some meetings, if they can work together, or at least listening what the private sector and the academician can tell, no, can share the what they see as potential, what they see as obstacles, challenges, is going to be important, and we are going really to develop ourselves if we are all working together. If the government itself is going to work together, yes, of course, maybe it's going to listen in or just attending some webinars or reading some papers or something like this. But if in the FIALAC even there are possibilities inside the specific working groups to work together, to share thoughts together, no, thinkings together, I think it's going to be better, and we are going to see positive results as soon as possible. Then it can be translated or shared with the specific countries or regional blocks in our region in Latin America, maybe. No, I want to think more from the Latin American perspective and how we can move beyond and advance in a faster way. No, because if we think from the Mercosur, we are always very slow. If we think, or if you think like a specific country, no, Argentina, I think FIALAB can help. And the last thing, but not the least, is the academic way. The academic way, we are here, you as academician, also me as academician, we are here to help because we understand very deeply what is happening not only in the business sector or the export import of specific product, but we are in a daily contact, whatever, of course, more virtually than before, no, but because of the pandemic. But we are here to help. You know, I just shared with you and the audience very shortly this. But from the time I am here in Indonesia, from October 2019, and unfortunately, I could have the opportunity to share my views or topics regarding Latin America with people in Southeast Asia, not only in Indonesia, lecturers, students. I bring here some of the things that Rafi and Anna even they were saying, no, the misconceptions or the lack of knowledge. They really don't know about Latin America, about Argentina, only Messi, Maradona, or Colombia or Mexico, telenovela. Apart from this, we are not existing. Unfortunately, I am very sad to say this. So in this perspective, the academic, and not only for the business, doing research about business, I mean, we are here to help, to share with the people, for example, in Indonesia, how they can understand more and to have more knowledge about Argentina, Mercosur, Latin America, Central America, Colombia, for example. So this is the way that the academic way in universities, in FEALAC, in the governments, assisting companies, teaching students. There are many different ways that we are here to help. This is the purpose, and we can do it.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. We have two more raised hands. I'm so sorry. Silvia, please, you have your microphone. Okay, Silvia, well, if you're not there yet.
Anna, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay. I was having trouble. Okay, first of all, thank you, Anna, very much for organizing this kind of events and webinars. And Sebastian, for this great session and information. My name is Silvia Ray. I work at the National Business Association of Colombia at the International Affairs Department, where we help companies in their internationalization efforts and process. So I saw on the chat box a question about the sources or tools in order to get to know more about non-tariff barriers in Latin America. So I would like to say that we have actually at Andy a tool that we collect sources and platforms and all this kind of information. So I will leave my email address in the chat in order for you to write me in case you have any questions, and also if there is any interested company interested in investing in Colombia, we can also connect you and help you in this matter. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Silvia. Thank you for your comments. I see the hand raised of Marcelo. Marcelo, I think I am enabling you to activate your audio. You have the microphone, Marcelo.
Yes, hello, Ana and Sebastian. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Sebastian, Ana, and Mariana Medina, who directly invited me. And Sebastian, congrats for your oral presentation. as a fellow countryman, you know, both of us are Argentinians, so thank you very much, and congrats for your representation. And my point is the following. I'm working for a Chinese company dedicated to the development of business for the medical devices sector. I've been doing this for almost 15 years. And I know perfectly the situation, the trade situation between Asian and Latin American countries, at least referring to this sector. I insist, the medical devices sector. But this is an open communication between you and us, and not only to share my point of view about the sector I know very well, but also I want to be open about some other sectors, Sebastian, you are expertise about, and I would like to learn more about that. And as we are living in a very much interconnected world, and other sectors depend on the other ones, I would like to know, to be more specific, Sebastian, and now here's my question. I would like to know, what is your point of view about the logistic problems related to other trade sectors between Asian countries and Latin America? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marcelo, for your question. And it's very interesting, by the way, the medical devices sector, if I'm not wrong, what you say, is very promising and very, even specifically talking regarding the business opportunities for export, for import, for investment in Latin America, as well as in the ASEAN region. This specifically sector, there are opportunities. It's a matter to consider which country first, how to get access first, what is the best way. But this is something that if you are interested, you can take a look into this opportunity. I think that actually, yeah, there are many problems, specifically the logistics, and for the different sectors, this is something that now has been aggravated because, as I said before, the cost of the containers. I was just putting the example of a container, for example, from China, but also from Indonesia to the United States is something similar to Latin America, the price. But there are things that companies actually they are trying to do as a countermeasure to this problematic. Of course, one of these is definitely stopping so far or for now temporarily the business, no, because they really don't know how to face this expensive cost for the container. The second thing is they are rescheduling or reprogramming the purchasing or the delivery of the product. Of course, that this is something that is not going to be free. It's going to have some cost in some way for the seller, for the buyer, and it's going to impact, depending the product, how sensitive could be, well, the delay of the specific product. We always think and say, no, like a barrier between Asia Pacific and Latin America, the transit time, no? How long time is taking, 1 month, 45 days, 60 days, depending the road, depending how we have the opportunity to bring, and even is more complicated right now, the product, no, because the maritime road, I mean. But this kind of business was running already from long time. So it's a point that we need to think. We need to think how to make things better, cheaper also, of course. And for this specific problematic and how we can find a way, which is very complicated, by the way, because we as the companies, or we as the business decision makers, advisors, academician, researcher, whatever, whoever we are, I mean, we need to push for, again, working together. Working together is going to be one of the topics or the main conclusions that we need to say for making trade agreements, for working together in the regional forums or regional blogs, working together when we want to build a better and more deeply knowledge between, one with each other, no? ASEAN with Latin America and vice versa. And this is the same for the logistics, and this is the same for how we can push governments and how we can push from governments to international organizations, specifically related to the transport, the maritime transport, the World Trade Organization. This is something that from the government, we cannot do anything, honestly. This is something that we are going to see only positive results when we are going to stay like in a big table, even the difficulties, I acknowledge the difficulties, but in that moment when we are going to see better results for everyone, and specifically for us as business players.
Well, thank you very much, Marcelo and Sebastián. We are almost like 1 hour after the time we said we will finish, but I think we have one more question in the chat room, and I would like Mariana from Lane team to read these questions aloud, and perhaps to get advantages that we have Sebastián here in the room. So Mariana, can you help me please giving out the questions?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for your words, first of all, Sebastián and Ana. And we have here the first question is from Sinrik. It says, I'm Sinrik from Rahanet of Cebu. My question is, Cebu is one of the oldest and first capital of the Philippines. Manila was second capital and current capital of the Philippines. Why Cebu was not recognized of trade internationally, specific like ASEAN and Latin America, with Cebu known as the top 1 richest province state country in the Philippines. Cebu lost 3.9 trillion pesos a year by Manila, and it is this for of regime of trade of racial discrimination of Tagalog of Cebuano, Cebu in Visayas, and Moro, Muslim in Mindanao. I mean, the development was very slow, and Cebu needs help from you to develop the GDP.
So I think there the question is if Cebu's trade is reflected on the trade figures that Sebastián showed. And Sebastián, I will let you answer this question.
Okay, thank you so much, Sinrik from Cebu, the Philippines. I am very happy to receive a question from the dear Philippines. It's a very specific question, by the way, because we are putting a lot of attention in Cebu. Cebu is, of course, is a really important place in the Philippines and also in the Southeast Asia, and also is connected when we talk about the doing business or the trade and the logistics, not only with Southeast Asia, not only with Asian countries, but also with Latin America. I know some cases from countries even in like my country, Argentina, exporting to the Philippines, specifically to Cebu or not. I mean, not to Manila, no, not always to Manila port, not to the Luzon Island, for example. But I think that the Cebu, from my perspective, is a very important place. And of course, there are some things that from our side, no, from Latin America, again, it's a matter of lack of knowledge that we have with each other. There should be ways that Cebu companies, Cebu government, Cebu institutions, universities, researchers, we can try to approach, we can try to find what could be the best ways to try to help each other, or maybe how from Latin America we can push to help the development in Cebu. This is something that maybe this is a good question, or your point of view, Cindric, indeed, because maybe we can find, thanks to this idea that you bring to us, we can try to think how we can approach specifically in the Philippines, not only going directly to Manila, but what happens if we can try to go directly to Cebu and work and put attention to other parts in the Philippines, and that can helping the people in Cebu and surrounding areas in the central, in Visayas, in the central Philippines, and can also help to us in Latin America to know more about Philippines, not only Manila, and also specifically the business perspective. We can try to do more business with you, more export, more import, etc.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Mariana, do we have another question, or we can close here the session?
Yes, we have the last question here. So the question is from Erlinda, Indonesia. It says, "Dear Sebastian, nice to meet you here. I saw your export data from Latin America to ASEAN. I see still little of manufacturing, but in the sourcing business, many Americans want to get out from China to Latin America, like German furniture and handicraft. I have barrier in sourcing their besides. They want local people from Latin America to visit the factory. Also no data I can track on the manufacturing. Any idea of how to get this done? Thank you for your time, Erlinda."
Okay, Linda, hello. Well, you're from Indonesia, so I would say terima kasih, thank you in your language. And I think that, yes, it's true that some countries, not only the US, they were doing this kind of reshoring or nearshoring or relocating companies getting out from China. In the case of the US, it's true, they were choosing, most of them, companies from the US, I mean, going to Mexico and maybe another countries in South America, maybe. The same we can we can refer to European countries like Germany, for example, and this can impact the doing business scenario in Southeast Asia, and even of course there are cases of companies from China going to Vietnam mainly, and also to Indonesia. The point here is how Latin America can catch this new scenario, these opportunities that the reshoring or the nearshoring or the relocating can bring maybe opportunities for Latin America to approach not only China, but also Southeast Asia, like an alternative or like the best supplier now that we have this dramatic change. There are some countries that they will continue in China because it's not so easy after all getting out from China. Maybe it's costly, it's expensive, the relocating operation, I mean. But this is something that there are some analysts, they are already thinking, no? How from Southeast Asia, Latin America, from a comparative basis, no? They can try to track these opportunities and try to offer to the other like the best alternative, the best solution, the best positive way. I think this is helping us in our community, no? ASEAN Latin America, to work together and to help to the other together, no? Maybe we can offer to you from Latin America, we can of course find the different ways, and you from Indonesia or Southeast Asia, you can offer to us, to the US or to any other country, you in Europe, for example, as a new alternative, considering how China has been feeling the impact from these kind of maneuvers.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Well, we already reached the time limit. Thank you very much to all the participants today. Please be part of the group that we are creating in Telegram so that you don't miss any other session that we will be holding on in the next weeks. Thank you very much, Sebastian, for all your time, for your expertise share, as well to all the experts and the audience that connected today. Keep on following us in our social media, Lane International Network in LinkedIn, and join our group. So thank you to all, and keep on working for our regions. The Southern Hemisphere needs our help and our proactiveness. And so your participation in future meetings will also be very important. Thank you all for your time, and have a great day in Latin America and a good night in Asia. Bye, and thank you all.